Hey guys, my name is Vanessa Campos and I'm here for Caddie Conversations with Mr. Matt Lupi.
What's
Matt,
going
you
on?
want to introduce yourself for a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So I work at a gym in Austin called the Kollective. I'm the assistant general manager and a personal trainer there. Outside of Kollective, I host the Define Success podcast and I'm an online coach, helping people reach their full potential in life, fitness, and all aspects.
How do we like it?
I like that a lot. I don't know if my partner does, but I like it a lot.
I don't like that at all.
Oh.
Oh, you bombed it, but I don't like it. Shot right there.
It was absolutely smashing. All right, we're going at this big tower. See what happens. Y'all, if I could get this up in the air, I would be a happy gal. Reach for the sky. Oh, I got it up in the air. That was really bad.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Go on.
Thank
Go
you.
up to your ball up there.
Awesome. I will do that.
Matt, you are also a big podcaster. Is that right?
Yeah, been 3 years now.
Wow. I definitely admire you because for anybody who's listening or watching, this man has 192 episodes. Am I right?
Yep.
I've listened to the last 1/20th of that. But what has that process looked like for you, and what have you learned along the way from starting at number 1 and then starting at 192? Also, in the last 3 years, podcasting changing.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I started the process in 2021. I was in LA on Rodeo Drive. If people don't know what that is, it's a road with like hundreds of designer stores and famous people and cars and fashion. And I was wearing like shorts and a t-shirt. I had no interest of like being there. It was like cool to see, but that's not me at all. And I had this realization, I was 20 at the time, that's what people view as success, is the fame, money, status. And that did not resonate with me. So I started thinking to myself, I was reading books at the time, listening to podcasts, started my personal development journey. And I thought, like, what does success really mean? Because that's not success to me. And I couldn't find an answer. So I started asking people, hey, what does success mean? And a lot of people were like, I don't know. And I'm like, how can we all say we want to be successful? We don't know what that means. We don't know how to define it or what to measure it by. So I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a Napoleon Hill style of approach. Napoleon Hill just went around to the billionaires of his time and just studied under them. I'm like, okay, how can I get in the room or a Zoom call with people that I view as successful and ask them, hey, tell me about your story. How do you view success? What advice do you give to people that are in my shoes? So a lot of it was from my own development of learning from people, but also to spread a message to people out there that want more. Hey, it's not all about listen to the entrepreneur say, this is what I do every single morning. No, like, let's talk about the losses. Let's talk about the wins. Let's talk about what success really means when you get to the end and you have that 10-figure business. What does success mean? Is it, oh, I wish I spent more time with my family. I want to travel more. I want to give back. So I learned a ton, and I've been able to impact a lot of people, which means the world to me. Whether it's people I don't know or people I see every day saying like, hey, I just listened on Wednesday. So it's been super fun. I've seen a growth in my own speaking and question asking ability. So it's great just for my personal development and my skill set. But at the end of the day, it's just all about impacting people.
Oh.
Yep.
Watch this be you and watch that be me. Guns.
I'd go home.
Hey, it's nothing to be ashamed of.
Is that you?
That's you.
What? Yeah, that's me right here.
How do you feel? A girl just outdrove you.
Yeah, it's tough. Is that actually you? Yeah.
Yeah, that's him.
Well, that's it for me.
Why are you so disciplined?
I think for me, it's like, I know there's a lot of potential that I have, and it's always chasing, like, what's that next step? What is the ultimate version of myself? And I think you can unlock a lot of potential just by taking more action and hitting those milestones. And then once you get to the next step, it's like a video game. You see, like, here's the next goal, here's the next outcome. So it's huge to me. You can see what you're made of. You can grow a lot. You're going to fail, but you learn and get stronger. and along the way, you're going to inspire a lot of people.
Yeah. What's your current step you're working on?
Right now, it's becoming more of an online coach. I've really stepped into this space less than a year ago,
Yeah.
and I just saw the potential of impacting people across the world. Really, you're not just confined to people in your community or in your gym. You can impact so many. The financial freedom that can come from it is second to none, and it just finding those ways to not be tied to a career or a job. It's like I can travel, I can do what I want on a daily basis, take care of my people, and be set.
Yeah. So you're telling me a little bit about you're doing a 90-day action step plan. What does that all entail?
Yeah, it's basically identifying what your major goal is and maybe some minor goals that support that, and picking a checklist of what do I have to do on a daily basis to get there. So you pick the outcome of, okay, in December, who do I want to be? What do I want to achieve? And starting in September, what do I need to do to get there? And it really shows how small steps lead to major changes. So if you go day by day, even if it's just I'm making an Instagram post, I'm writing a strength training program, that will eventually lead to massive results because you're doing it on a daily basis.
Yeah. What would you say to somebody who's struggling with their daily habits? Because I know even for me, if I don't have a bigger picture or a bigger goal or a real rooted reason as to why I'm doing what I'm doing, it's hard for me to stay disciplined. You know, I mean, I started off 75 hard with you guys, and because it wasn't forefront at my mind of why I was doing it, I quickly fell off.
Yeah. It's how do you want to feel at the end of the day?
Yeah.
Like a lot of times we'll be in life and hit a rut, or you'll finish the day, lay in bed, and you're like, I could have done more. I was lazy. I didn't achieve anything. And there gets a time where you're like, I'm sick of that. Like I don't want to be just going in circles. And first, if you can identify that, you're different. Like you know that you have a different mindset than most people, because most people are just stuck in that rhythm. But if you finish the day and you're like, I could have done more, how can you add a few things, whether it's a morning routine, working out, reading a book, get into the word of like, this is something that's not going to give me immediate results, but if I do it over time, I'm going to feel better. I can finish the day knowing that I won the day, and eventually in months, years, or maybe even decades, you'll see major results.
For sure. After or through those 90 days, how many of those 90 days do you wake up and you say, today I just don't feel like doing what I need to do?
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's and that's why the main lesson I've learned from this is go smaller. Like I'm all about setting big goals, but if you set like a small win for the day, you're like, okay, that's achievable. And if you do that by 10 a.m., you're like, I have the rest of the day to do more. Or if you want to go hit the golf course, go work out, hang out with friends, you have the flexibility to do so. But you're not always going to close that deal. You're not always going to make that major progress every single day. So it's like, how can I tone it back and make sure I'm just crushing little small wins daily? Yeah.
That's
All right, we're on hole 9.
Okay.
Let's see what happens.
So, get over Drew.
Let's see what this little 7 wood, if we can repeat action the last hole.
Nice.
That works.
So pure.
Beautiful. Thank you. Golly. You just want to get rid of me already?
Yeah.
Ouch.
You're playing too well, so you got to get rid of the competition.
I mean,
It's
no
a
harm.
compliment. Very backhanded, but it's a compliment.
You're 24 and I'm 22. How does that humble perspective on life at such a young age benefit you right now in the community in Austin?
Yeah, I think it just gets you in the right circles, because we've talked about before, like a lot of our friends and people that we hang out with are so much older than us.
Yeah.
And it's like, I would never think like being 24 and being friends with people that are like 30 plus, you know, like it just seems like a different demographic. But that's just what it shakes out to be in Austin. And I'm so grateful for it, because I think it makes me show up as a better person to get in those circles and to be around those people, because they've been in life longer, they've had careers, they've built success, maybe they're in a marriage. You know, I look up to them in different ways. So you can't be the kid like partying and getting drunk and showing up hungover to places. Like you need to have your things together. And I think for me, it's like, not only how can I learn from them, but also how can I provide value.
Awesome.
So I just do my best to not only like be in that conversation, but contribute as well. I want to learn as much as possible from the people around me, but also, hey, I have some attributes that I can contribute, and I don't want to just be a leech to people. I want there to be some mutual benefit.
For sure. For anybody who's listening, Matt Lupi, Matthew, do you have a middle name?
Scott.
Matthew Scott Lupi is definitely someone, as a friend, I've seen just develop over the last year or 2 years that I've known you. You are very disciplined, and you aren't drinking and partying. You're not your typical young 20-year-old, and that shows. And I think anybody who meets you agrees that they are just sticker shock when they realize your age. So just a testament to you, and just your answer is so humble, but then also I agree, bringing value to every conversation that goes below surface level, because I think we live in a community in Austin where things can stay at surface level really quickly.
Yeah.
But if we're willing to find out and dig deeper, we can also dig deeper with great people around us.
Absolutely. And also, like, a good question to ask if you're younger is like, why do you have to wait? Because I always thought, like, you're not going to be successful and have a good paying job until you're 30. You're not going to be married until 35. Like, things that you want can happen way sooner than you realize. So, like, why would you sit on the sidelines waiting for things to happen and fall into your lap when you can start taking action now? So get around the right people, take action towards what you really want, and like, your age is not going to define you ever. Like you said, like, it honestly just impresses people if you're actually getting after it and going above the bare minimum of what your generation is. You're going to earn a lot of respect and actually achieve something.
Amen. What does success mean to you? And what's the most intriguing answer you've heard on your podcast thus far?
Yeah. Success to me, and this changes for me, hence why I'm like continuing the podcast. I think it's always going to evolve. But success means to me right now being a contrarian. And what that means is like standing up for what you believe in and not being afraid to go against the status quo in society. I think a lot of us get too caught up in what others think or what society tells us what to do. And if you have the courage to really go for what you want, or if people want you to be unhealthy and you're going to the gym, you're eating healthy, that is success. Like, you're going to set yourself way apart from other people. And if you look at the people that we admire in society, they're ones that stand up for what they believe in. They take action no matter what. They do the things that maybe society wouldn't always glamorize as, hey, this is the sexy thing to do, but I'm going to do it anyways. You look at people that are often criticized, they're the most successful because they go against the grain of society. So that's it for me. I want to follow those footsteps and have the courage and strength to say, I'm going to go down that path, no matter what people think about me. The most interesting answer was recently, one of my good friends, Harry, he said to me when I interviewed him, success to him meant obedience to God. And that was the first time I heard a faith answer for success in all of my interviews. And I thought that was super interesting because most people, when they think about success, it's family, relationships, travel, money. But he was like, no, like, if I can answer the call and be the man that God wants me to be, that's success to me. And for me right now, the season of my life, like, getting back into my faith, investing into that, it was a really good realization that, like, hey, you're not always going to need to chase the business and the money. Like, why don't you just chase for God's approval? And if you can do that at the end of the day, that is extremely successful.
Wow. How would you personally define being obedient to God?
I think it's being less distracted by worldly things. Surround yourself with people that are believers and push you to become a better person. We're always pushed to go towards technology and cheap thrills and lust, and that's just the way society is framed right now. It's easy to fall into that trap. That's where 99% of people fall into. But if you can be like, hey, there's something that, like, you can't see or feel, but like, it's there, and you can feel that inside of you and understand, like, there's more meaning to life than just the worldly things that we all pursue. That's answering the call, I think. And you get hints through prayer of, like, this is the path you should head on.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not answering that, then like, what are you doing?
Wow. Would you say when you're looking out on your life, looking out on who you want to be, what you want to achieve, is there one big goal in mind that drives your everyday decisions?
The biggest goal that I set was related to my podcast, and I don't know how this came to me. I just randomly said it the first day I released an episode, and I said I want 10 million people to find the definition of success through my work. And I don't know why the number was 10 million, but I truly think like with my personal development, it's like I changed myself a lot, my mindset, my body, my relationships through investing to myself. But so many people aren't doing that. And I've seen the changes. It's in my Instagram bio. I'm an ordinary person with extraordinary goals. Like there's nothing special about me. So if I can be something different, everybody can. And if I can be that inspiration for someone, or a guest can be an inspiration to someone, like, hey, you're meant for more. Here's what success means. Here's the tools to get there. And let me guide you in the direction to discover this is what success really is. That is such a fulfilling life. And, talk about legacy. Like, I don't care about like a statue of me or like putting my name on a football field. Like, I want people to think like, hey, my life was different because of what he did. And I'm now able to make a bigger impact, have a better life with my family, travel the world because he opened the door for me.
Awesome. Let's dive into that a little bit deeper. Let's define legacy.
I'm not a huge like believer in legacy, honestly. Like in the United States, like what's the most powerful position? The president, right? We've had 46 presidents. How many could you name? You know, like 5, 10. If you put someone on the spot, maybe 0 for some. And
who's the 45th president?
Donald Trump, who's the 47th. So I think like we get so caught up in like, hey, what's legacy? But like important people are always forgotten. Always forgotten. And later in life, like they die and their legacy is tainted because it's subject to what people believe or what they wrote in textbooks. So I don't care too much about legacy. Like what I can control is impacting, helping, serving, and inspiring people that I can directly see in life, that are directly looking at me. They have eyes on me. 80 years after my death, someone might read a book that I wrote, but I have no control over what that impact could be.
Wow. Let's multitask.
Yeah, let's do
it. Shifting the conversation to a golf perspective, how do you think golf is the game of life?
Everything counts. Like every single stroke. I haven't golfed like a lot of my life, but you're in situations on the golf course where like you can have a great drive and then you end up messing up the hole because your next few shots are bad, or you can have a terrible drive that you make up for with a good approach. I think like in life, like you're never going to be perfect. You're never going to be perfect full 18 every single shot. Same thing with life. You're going to mess up, you're going to fail, but like everything counts. You don't always have to win, you don't always have to succeed, but like if you're intentional and say, hey, here's why I messed up, I learned from my mistake, I'm going to get better because of it and make up for it. That's what life really is. And it's better to see things through and get to the end and get to that final 18th hole, because if you go through like 7 and you fail and you're like, I give up, you're not going to be very successful.
Yeah. I'd love to hear a personal story from you, Matt, of where you have hit a great drive and your second shot wasn't so great in your personal life.
It's a great question. Yeah, I would say the biggest thing for me was my first year of college. I got into the school of my dreams, University of Pittsburgh, and I went with goals of going pre-med, and I wanted to be a doctor.
Wow.
Yeah, and
You learn something new every time.
Yep. I got into the department I wanted to. Like, I was on track, and I was so happy. Like, I remember saying to my parents at orientation, I was like, you can call me Dr. Lupi now. And my dad was like, whoa. But I was like, this is it. Like, it's going to be so easy. Like, this is what I'm meant to do. And literally like 2 months in, I was like, this is not what I want to do at all. And having conversations with people in the school and friends and a professor that I really respected, I was like, this is not me.
Mhm.
So that was like wild to me. It was like, I went from telling everyone
Mhm.
I'm going to be a doctor, and you get that status and that high five of like, wow, great, awesome. And then going home for Thanksgiving, telling my parents like, I want to do something completely different.
Wow. Talk about pivoting.
Yeah, it was tough. And like, I wasn't super confident at the time.
Wow.
So I was like, almost like, hey, what if I like try it again or something? Like, I wasn't like fully set on like, this is what I'm going to do. So yeah, it was wild. But luckily I picked things up and made something out of it. But yeah, I felt like very low because I was like, I don't know really what my life is going to turn into.
Yeah, well, give us the cliff notes of from that moment, coming home Thanksgiving, realizing that you're going to pivot from going pre-med to how you ended up in Rodeo Drive, wanting to take this Napoleon Hill approach on success.
It was COVID. It changed everything for me. That was my sophomore year of college. Fall was fine. Spring, we got shut down, sent home. And I came to a realization that there was nothing open. I couldn't see my friends. I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't even stay on campus. I can either...
And this was in Pittsburgh?
This was in Philly. I was in Temple.
In Philly,
yeah.
Okay.
So I could either be like everybody else and not exercise. I can watch Netflix all day, eat like crap, or I can actually try to make something of myself. So I built out like this little home gym. I started reading books. I bought my first course on like how to run a business. I didn't even have a goal to run a business. I was just like, cool, sounds good. And I started investing in my personal development, and that like changed everything because I was like, wow, like I'm seeing progress. I'm investing in myself, and I got the confidence of like, hey, I can do a little bit more. And that led me to then being in LA, and I was like, wow, massive internal realization of like, there's something wrong with society, and like, I think I can change it.
Wow. So take me back to that moment at Rodeo Drive. What sparked the idea of podcasting? I know you talked about why you wanted to ask the question of what success means to you, but why podcasting? Why not a YouTube channel or anything else?
For me, I was podcasting before. I'm a big Philadelphia Eagles fan. Love diehard,
Really?
yeah. And I was writing in college when I started my freshman year. I was writing for a big sports page that covered the Eagles. And I was writing on Twitter, and they were like, "Hey, podcasts are big. Who wants to run a podcast?" I was like, "Yep." Like, add some more to my plate, you know? So I started doing that, and I grew a pretty big podcast, one of the top Eagles podcasts on the rankings. So I was familiar with how that worked and how to get guests and how to speak, and I got a little bit better doing that. So it was like second nature because I was doing that podcast when I was still in LA. I was like 3 years into podcasts about the Eagles, and I was like, this doesn't really fit me anymore. So I'm like, I can just pivot and do a different podcast. So I knew how it worked. And I was thinking also, like, I'm reading books, but like, if I published a book right now, like, who knows me? Like, I'm not going to sell any copies. My mom would buy one. But other than that, I was like, I think this,
Mom.
yeah, I just think like digitally, like that's the best way to like build an audience and really get a message out there. And I wanted it to be longer form rather than being like, hey, I'm going to post on Instagram or Twitter when it's very short and like 30 seconds. Hey, let me talk for an hour with people and actually get a full in-depth conversation. So it just seemed like a no-brainer to me.
So right now what you're doing most of is coaching. How did you get from starting your podcast to becoming a coach?
A lot of it was just believing in myself that I had enough value to not only put a product out there in podcasting, but also impact people one-on-one. Beyond that, it's repetition. It's getting people to trust you, believe in you, and know that you have enough value to provide that they're actually going to pay you for your services.
Would you say you would define yourself as an entrepreneur?
Not quite. I'm getting there again. I used to be. I've ran a business before. That was very fun. I've learned a lot and did that at a very young age. I started when I was 13 years old. But right now, I don't see myself as an entrepreneur. I'm working on a business right now, but I want to hit some revenue milestones before I take on that label as entrepreneur. I don't want to be a faker and say like, hey, I'm an entrepreneur and not have anything to show for it.
Yeah. What would you say to somebody who doesn't have a title right now? They're not a coach, they're not an entrepreneur, they're not a teacher, they're not a lawyer, but they're still trying to go through self-betterment every single day. What would you say to that person who doesn't have a title?
They're a student of life. like literally just absorb as much as possible.
Mhm.
Consider yourself a sponge. One of my coaches in January asked me, what's one word to describe yourself this year? And I said, a sponge. Like, give me all the experiences, give me all the
Mhm.
knowledge, give me everything possible that'll make me a better person. And like,
Mhm.
maybe I'll throw some away that doesn't fit me, but
Mhm.
I just want to absorb.
Get a
And
full plate.
yeah, exactly. Like, if you're not actively doing anything, if you're not
Mhm.
in your dream career or something, you can say, hey, I'm doing this, I'm working part-time here, but literally in your downtime, be a student, learn from the
Mhm.
greats, listen to a podcast, read a book, get around mentorship, or if your parents have success, learn from them, because if you're a student, if you're always learning, you're going to keep growing. And in one of my favorite books, Shoe Dog, it says you grow or you die, and I
Wow.
think we should all choose growth.
Wow. What's your favorite podcast right now? Not your own.
Yeah. You know, it was crazy. A couple weeks ago, one of my friends said to me, there's a big podcaster, his name's Andy Frisella, and we both listened to him, and she was
Mhm.
like, you know, your podcasts have been so good, I stopped listening to Andy. I was like, whoa, he's like a top 5 podcaster. But for me right now, honestly, I would say his is my favorite. It's called Real AF by Andy Frisella.
Sounds tough.
He started 75 Hard. So
Really?
like, he's someone I look up to. I've been in a coaching program by
Mhm.
him. And the reason I like it so much is it gives you the raw truth of life. And he's taken a very big political stance right now,
Mhm.
of like, hey, here's what's happening right now that the news coverage is not telling you.
Mhm.
And here's what you need to know in order to win in life. And the stuff I learned from that I can't see on Fox News, or CNN, even like Twitter or Instagram, is mind-blowing. So it shows you, like, going back to my definition of success, it's to be a contrarian.
Mhm.
And if you are just following in line with what you're fed every single day, and you're not abreast of what's actually happening and how you can be different,
Mhm.
you're going to fail. So that's the podcast that I really enjoy because of that.
What's your favorite thing to be different and bold in when you wake up in the morning?
My fitness.
Mhm.
Fitness is a huge part of my life, and it used to be, honestly, I'll be completely honest, I started lifting weights because I wanted to get girls' attention in high school. I was like, yep.
So how's it working?
I was like, yep, this will work. This will do the trick. I was a skinny kid. And then it was like, okay, like, I just want to get stronger. And like, my goals have always changed. And now I'm like, I don't have like a specific goal in
Mhm.
fitness. I want to challenge myself.
Mhm.
And the challenge isn't to see like what's my body capable of. It's to show myself that my mind is capable of doing things that I've set out to do.
Mhm.
So when I do like a Spartan race, or I do a weird challenge in the gym, like 1,000 pull-ups, or
Mhm.
I'm doing
1,000 push-ups the
Yeah.
other day,
Yep.
challenging our friend Drew.
Yep. Or like this month I'm doing something called Squattober, where you squat every day, Monday through Friday, for the
Mhm.
entire month. It might look insane to people,
Mhm.
but at the same time, like, I want that to impact someone, to say
Mhm.
like, oh, I should get off the couch and go do something.
Mhm.
Maybe if it's just walking on the treadmill.
Mhm.
So that's me being different. Like, I'll do anything, like literally challenge me to anything fitness related, I will do it, because I want to see what I'm made of, but also I want to show people like, hey, you
Mhm.
can be doing more.
Yeah. For everyone listening, I want to tell a short story about Matt. You had never done the Murph before this year,
Mhm.
correct?
Correct.
We had messaged you, 2 days before?
Mhm.
3 days before? And if you're the real deal, you're doing it with a weighted vest.
Mhm.
Matt shows up with a weighted vest in hand, never has done it before, and said, I'm going to see how well or how fast or if I can even get this thing
Yep.
done. And you did. It
Mhm.
didn't matter how long it took you. Quitting was not an option. You were going to get it done.
Yeah.
And I admire that mentality so much. Would you say that mentality is something similar to David Goggins?
Yeah, I think I get a lot of that mindset from following David Goggins' teachings and his books and podcasts, because he's like, he doesn't care anything about the physical.
Mhm.
He's all about the mental aspect of it.
And he's very bold.
Yeah,
Very
he is,
bold.
100%. Yeah, I look up to him a lot, and like,
Mhm.
maybe that's not going to be my exact personality, but like, I want that mindset that he has. Yeah, I think it's just like, if you can step up to the plate and challenge yourself, you're ahead of so many people just
Mhm.
by showing up,
Mhm.
completing it. Like, you're different.
Mhm.
So that's what it's about for me. Is like, how many times have you talked to someone and like, hey, I'm doing this, like, oh wow, I could never, like 75 hard, like, kudos
Mhm.
to you for even stepping up to the plate, because
Mhm.
so many people, they hear that and they're like, I would never do that. It's like, why don't you just try? Like, you're already selling yourself short.
Mhm.
You're calling yourself out for XYZ reason. That's not it for me.
For sure. What I've noticed also about you is that while we're out here on the golf course, even though you are I wouldn't say a golf fanatic.
Yeah.
You know, you're not here every weekend. It's not something you played in college, but it is something you've done casually. Listening to you, you don't talk down to yourself ever. And that's why I've thoroughly enjoyed this round, because, you know, you may not have a great shot, but it's still always a good time. How powerful is self-talk to you?
Yeah, it was everything. I don't think the energy of the world can really recognize who you're talking to when you're talking to them. It's like, oh, you put something bad out, you're gonna get bad. If you put something good out, you're gonna get good. Like, that's why you should never hate on someone's success, because if you say oh, I hate that, you're gonna be rewarded with failure as well. So it's just are you, first off, being real with yourself? You can give yourself constructive criticism. You could say hey, I was not good at that, and here's how to get better. It's not always rainbows and butterflies, but if you're just always down yourself and you're calling yourself names and everything, you're gonna get depressed. You're not gonna take action, and you're gonna fall back to bad habits that are never gonna get better.
It's into the thick of it. Into the thick of it. Watch this hit a tree and just come right back at you.
Better not.
I'm joking. I kid. Okay. Gonna hit this low little sniper. Dead straight at the pin. Oh, yeah.
Nice.
That was just saucy. Absolute sauce.
Great job.
Run, Forrest, run! That was very bumpy. Look at this fur. Okay, we are on the 17th hole now. Par 3 coming up. What are you going to take?
What's the distance?
Have a gander.
7-iron.
Bet.
Old reliable.
You've been taking 7-iron all day, haven't you?
Sometimes if you got something good going, you just keep riding it out. You know?
Just got to keep it going.
Yeah, exactly.
How many 7-irons have you hit today?
I mean, if I'm not driving the ball or putting the ball, I'm probably using a 7-iron. So probably 50% of the time.
Yeah, and you're about 4 under now?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Tomato, 4 under, 14
16 over.
Awesome. Well, what is one person you admire, you look up to right now?
Great question. Someone I really admire right now is my buddy Matt Johnson. He set out to run across the state of Texas in the month of October, and as we're recording this, he did it yesterday. Finished the entire run. It was 830 miles. He came on my podcast a couple months before, and that's all we talked about because that was such an insane feat. So I wanted to hear all about it, and just the passion in his voice, because he's doing it to raise money for veterans, and the community backing him up, and all the brands involved and the money raised. It was just incredible to see someone hey, I'm going to do something that it's going to better me, but I'm also doing it to impact other people and finish it and make such a big impact. It's incredible. It's mind-boggling to have someone run 830 miles in 18 days, but to do it all for a good reason. Kudos to him. I'm so excited to see him again and congratulate him. Such a special moment, and it's cool to have people like that in my corner that inspire me, but also I know that they have my support, I have their support, and we're gonna crush it together.
Wow. So what you're saying is you're gonna make Matt Johnson proud on this coming shot.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, but that's an amazing feat. One, to do it for selfish reasons, just to say he could, but it's another to do it for the right reasons of raising money for something bigger than yourself. You've talked a lot about, in this conversation, doing things for other people because that's where your heart is. Let's talk more about the importance of just being a selfless heart.
I think it's so important because if you're always thinking about yourself, you can never make an impact on other people. And I think like I read a book one time, it's called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And the premise of it is like when you're alone in your thoughts and you're always worried about yourself, that's when you get stressed because you think about everything. If you really want to eliminate your stress, you should start helping other people. Number one, it's going to make you feel better. And number two, when you spend time doing other things, you have less time to worry about yourself. So that was like opened my mind to so many things that like, hey, like I'm in a decent position. You know, I'm not like in a third world country. Like I have a decent life. Like I don't need to be stressing about everything. Let me go help other people. Let me impact other people. I think a good example of this right now is the group that we had going for 75 Hard. We started with like 23 people, and not everybody's still in it we're almost at day 50. But the fact that like, hey, this isn't just for me right now. I've done 75 Hard before. Like if I failed tomorrow, like, yeah, I'd be upset with myself, but it's not like it's the end of the world. What's more important to me is getting as many people to the finish line as possible, because I want people to realize like they can achieve more. And it just brings me joy when people realize that and actually make progress.
Wow. You know, being in that group chat, it's been so fruitful, not because I've been able to make it all the way, because clearly I haven't. I've failed very soon out of the gate for that. But what's been so cool is to watch you and watch the way you lead us and everybody else in that chat. Because even though it's through social media, the group chat is on Instagram, you could not check in with anybody, or you can check in with only the people that are still doing it. But instead, you're checking in pretty much daily with everyone, sending encouragements. And that's when it shows that, yes, you say one thing on this podcast, but your actions behind the scenes say the exact same thing as well.
Thank you.
Relating words to actions, how valuable do you think that is in your life?
It's everything. I mean, if you can't be true to your word, like who's ever going to believe you? And like, I think it's important to lead by example. You need to be someone that holds true to your values. You actually put in the work. You make promises that you can fulfill. With that, you will gain trust from others. You will gain the respect and get in those circles that we talked about where you can actually get value from other people. But beyond that, like if you're lying to yourself, if you're lying to other people, like you're never going to be rewarded with success. So it's everything. And if you don't live up to that, if you don't live up to your word, own up to it and say, hey, I messed up. This is on me. Take ownership and get better because of it.
Yeah. So update, he took 7-iron.
Yep.
Put it right in the water.
Oh. The hole was the water.
Just kidding. Just kidding, guys. Matt, so earlier you were talking about how you're always looking for that next thing. What's your next thing?
So my ultimate goal in life, as far as what work I want to get into, is being a mental performance coach. So what that looks like is working with high achievers, whether it's a 7-8 figure entrepreneur or a athlete in the college or professional realm, helping them not in the physical aspect, but the mental side.
Awesome.
Perform those moments where you have to close a deal, perform those moments that it's the fourth quarter, primetime game, and you're the one that has to lead the charge and make the big play. I think there's a big disconnect in our society right now of the mindset, and people aren't understanding how important it is. And I want to be that person that coaches them through those moments and gives them the weaponry to make sure they're successful in the biggest moments.
Yeah. For anybody who's looking at getting their mental side sharper in life, what would you encourage them to do?
So one of my mentors, he talked to us about the burn. And the burn is what is something that keeps you going on days you don't want to do it, but also on the days after you just win. So the days you don't want to do it, when you want to stay in bed and not take any action, we've all been there. But also after you win, most people are just like, I'm done. I can take a week off, take a vacation. But there's something inside of you. You got to identify what that is, of what is that one thing that drives you forward, where if you don't want to do anything or you just had a big win, what keeps you progressing towards that ultimate vision?
Wow. That's so good.
Thank you.
I can see, even in my life, where I hit a high and I'm like, oh, awesome, golden, next thing, instead of actually using that burn to generate that next thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's some really good advice from your mentor.
Thank you.